welcome back. Yes, indeed. Those are the issues we'll be talking about this morning. And we've got two gentlemen joining us here today on the program. Nat'l, the former presidential aide, and Olatubosun Abolarinwa, security consultant. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Let me start with this call for state police. Mr. Akonde, this is a call not just today. It's been on previously. And it appears as though, we don't even know what to expect. The last time they got to the assembly, and they fell through. But this time, who knows? Do you, from what you've seen, is there any telling? Do you think that this time they actually want to do things differently or see this through entirely, having been discussed at the presidency and the governor's level?
Yeah, thank you, Chamberlain. So this is one of the, in my own view, a way that the APC can redeem itself. One of the major things that they offered in the change campaign of 2014-2015 is this idea of important and major restructuring, devolution of powers, of which state police is a big deal. So that, they're now finally coming around to doing it is a redemption, of a long-held promise. And I think, to your question, I think we should be hopeful because you have the president himself calling the governors and saying, look, let's find a way of doing this. So I think that we are on to a good cause. State police is around the corner. What
kind of framework should we look at? Because if it's called state police, chances are that there could only be two layers, the federal, state, the police. But something that there's got to be a little more community. They have to have that template at the community level.
Yeah, so without a doubt. So the state police part is to say that the state government, we have commanding authority. That means they don't have to wait for the Inspector General of Police to give orders in Abuja before stuff happens in their state. So that is the core thing. But of course, yes, there has to be at the local government level, even up to community level and stuff like that. It is part of the whole package because don't forget that the whole essence of state police is to have people who are conversant with the environment to be in charge and to have the authority to issue command. So I expect that we're going to have a multi-layered police force from the top to the bottom.
How significant do you think this would be?
It's going to be significant because looking at the current situation of the country, we have a peculiar problem. And this peculiar problem calls for the necessitated action on the part of the government towards ensuring that the country is well policed. Already, as you can see, the Kano State have Hisba, the Lagos State have LASTMA and LNS and several other ones. It did not just happen out of the blue. It happened as a result of changing in teams, changing in terms, and changing to crime and how we manage and fight it. Fortunately and unfortunately, it is a good thing that the presidency is now looking at it. I was one of the most excited person when I noticed that the governors are now called to do what some other state has been necessitated to do already. The most important thing we need to take into consideration is the fair point which you have raised, template, so that we don't go down the line that the national police has gone to and we're having problem today. Something must really be done, something must be put in place at the conceiving stage to ensure that the state police, the community police are actually coming to complement the existing policing system where people are going to get value for the money they are putting into the government.
What was the unfortunate bit? Because you said fortunately and unfortunate.
Yeah, there's an unfortunate bit. It's still part of us being Africa and being Nigerian. How are we going to use that?
What is going to be Nigerian?
What is going to, how are we going to use it? Will the governor, like the former governor of Kogi State, be able to use it to help his people or intimidate them?
That actually brings us to the next part of this conversation because we cannot ignore that elephant in the room. Is that too awesome?
Yeah.
There are two issues. We've heard the good side of state policing, closer to the community. They know the people. But there's an issue, funding. How is the state police going to be funded? We're seeing state governments are not able to pay salaries, they're unable to even generate IGR. How are they going to be able to fund the state police? And who checks to ensure that they are not turned into the personal army of the state governor?
Okay, that is why we cannot completely separate them from the existing system we have, and we need to really be careful as we proceed in the area of who check and balances the accountability. Somebody really needs to do that between the federal government, between the National Security Advisor and the Inspector General of Police. Something needs to be put in place.
So some kind of structure that involves the
federal. We have to be there. That is one. And secondly, policing is no longer free in the world. We need to stop deceiving ourselves. If you look at the Metropolitan Police, you will also see a product called Metropolitan Police Services. So the cost of transporting police, the cost of investigation, the cost of maintaining this nice uniform that you are seeing out there is actually come from somewhere. The system that is playing out now, that when you talk to some police officers, they tell you that they are buying their own uniform. When you look at the texture of the uniforms some police officers are wearing today, you don't see uniformity. You know, the quality is not really branded. It's not security coded. So any police officer can actually go to the textile market and pick up something that looks like the color of police uniform and wear it. And that is quite embarrassing from what I've seen. So what I'm saying about funding is that the federal government really needs to come to terms with the fact that we cannot have the kind of policing system we have at the moment, where the apparatus they are wearing, the cost of transporting them, the cost of maintaining their weapons, the cost of maintaining their building is actually being indirectly generated by the DPOs. How much are we giving the DPOs at the moment to manage a division? Does it make sense? We need to come to terms with that. The last time I checked, it was a little bit above 16,000 naira. And I don't know how many liters of fuel that is going to buy for an SUV which they are driving. Where is it going to take them? So if the state policing shouldn't be the type of police that we have to wait for their salaries. I mean, otherwise, what we are doing is that we are creating a new bunch of criminals and corrupt individuals to manage the state, and it will bring us right back to square one.
Mr. Laolu, let's talk a bit about the psychological impact of this. There's an aspect that people haven't talked about. The fact that you're asking a police officer to take care of a community. Let's say because we state policing, community policing will definitely be the outshoot of that. Now you're asking a police officer to take care of a community that he cannot afford to live in.
Yeah.
How do we improve remuneration? How do we work that dynamic out? We've seen it abroad, across the world. You know, the police officer that is manning Wuse, lives in Wuse, knows everything. That's a good thing. But he can afford to live in Wuse.
Right.
With the remuneration that we're seeing right now for the police officers in Nigeria, they will be asked to man communities that they are not able to afford to live in. How does that impact the kind of work that they will be doing in those places?
Right. I mean, my brother is very right that we have to be a more comprehensive review of police operations in the country generally. And a big aspect of that is their welfare. You know, clearly, it's not even dignifying. You know, you see a policeman and then the apparel is not really uniform. They wear all different kinds of shoes, you know, and that's just an insight. I mean, what he said about the DPO funding, you know, it's ridiculous. So I think what this opportunity has given us is another way to look entirely at the whole funding of the police. And I think what has to happen is that there has to be a little tweaking of the federal allocation formula. You know, I think that the states that will be having the state police have to get a little bit more funding, okay, from the federal government. Although, if you look at a place like Lagos State, they're already spending a huge amount of money right from the state. So there has to be a significant bumping up of the funding for the police that will cover not just their operations, but more importantly, their welfare. It's a very big deal.
The thing about that is, I guess it's part of what will be discussed and how they should go about it moving forward, because even right now, they're getting more funds, the states. The governors have huge security votes. So all of those things they will discuss. I know that a former chair of the NGF did say If any state can afford it, they should go ahead. If others can, we'll discuss and find a way. So, but if I could get your response too, because when he said fortunately and unfortunately, we've seen police services in North America, in Europe, we've seen images of them brutalizing citizens as straightforward and civilized as it is. Right. So are we somewhat is it utopia for us to think if we reorganize these security agencies, it will be perfect?
Well, so we have the opportunity, and that's the good thing about this discussion and the fact that governors and the president have come together to say, let's do state police. That gives us a very rare opportunity to reconfigure the whole relationship between the police and the citizens. Don't forget, if the police will tell you the police are your friends. This is the opportunity that we have to actually make it happen. The people need the police to be their friends, without a doubt. The police also need the people to respect and to trust them. That is how effective security is delivered. So these are the things that we have to discuss. What are the excesses of the police that has to be taken care of? What about the relationship of the people? How do the people regard them? And that's why the question of their dignity is very important. If the guy doesn't appear respectable, if he can't even dress properly, of course, people begin to not give him or her the respect. So he has to be properly taken care of. I think one of the former Inspector General of Police, Dr. Arase, did say that their welfare shouldn't just be a question of their salary, but you should look at, maybe accommodation for them where they know that is secure. Maybe look at scholarship for their children so that they know certain things are taken care of and they can give the job their best. But the point is that we have an opportunity to talk about all these things now.
Food security. Does security agencies, or at least including the police, you think they have a role to play in ensuring that the challenge we face with food now shouldn't even happen in the first place?
To be honest with you, I will say a big yes to that, and I would like to explain that a little bit further. Currently, before now, I've heard a lot of people talking about this problem of food shortages and using big grammars and looking at it in the cities. But nobody seems to be looking at the fate of the peasant farmers. Because I'm talking about farmers who are planting in my village, in my local government, who are only able to farm 2 acres of land. And they've been doing that for centuries, and they are able to take care of food supply around the year in that location. And that has been okay. My grandfather and my families, my ancestors has been part of that. I'm also a technical farmer at the moment. I think I'm
Which one is technical?
Yeah. Well, I went back to the farm to sustain my family. Yeah, I went to consultancy alone cannot do it, so that's the technicality of it. But what are the problems we face? And that's where I want to point out at answering your questions. The farmers are part of the same constituencies that now needs to be protected. It is no longer safe to be a farmer. To be honest with you, all the criminals that are trying to escape from the motorable road, the metropolitan cities, are now finding solace in the farms. Phones are being collected from farmers, their foods are being destroyed. Currently, in my local government, in local government in Osun State, the thieves, the bandits, are waiting for you to work on your farm, get the food to the harvest time, and they go there in the night and they harvest it.
Whoa.
So, apart from that,
how long has this been going on?
It's been going on. I think the first time I heard of this was about 3 years ago, and it's been ongoing. So the bandits that are not on the road are actually because they also need food. They need food to survive wherever they are hiding themselves. So farmers are being killed in their farms. Without me pointing too much, let us look at what just happened recently in Benue and Taraba and some other little packages of communities that we've been referring to as food baskets. Technically, Benue State, Boko, Makodi, where we go to buy yam and everything, where we refer to as the food basket of the nation, has been turned into an IDP camps. The major profession of an average Benue man by default is farming. Not only farming to feed the people of the middle belt. Their food, their vehicles travels to every part of the country. And now they couldn't go back to farm. In fact, if I have a son who studied agriculture now, if there is no good security, I cannot really confidently ask him to go into that profession because they are being killed. The Ruga introduced by the last government and the issue of free, what do we call the cattle rearing?
Movement.
Free movement, free grazing.
Grazing routes?
Grazing routes. There are problems, there are things left unfinished, uncompleted back then, which was an incident that is becoming an accident today. We still have cattle in our city moving. Even the Federal Capital Territory cannot be beautified with flowers because the cows will go out. So go to stadium, go to the city gate. The queens and kings palms that they were trying to plant to beautify the place cannot just grow for the past 7 years because up till yesterday evening around 5 a.m., I saw cattle next to the patrol vehicle parked there, and nobody is able to do something about that. If that is happening in the metropolitan city, can we now talk about what is happening in the villages, where sometimes where the farmer is farming does not have mobile phone masts for them to call for help? I know a lot of farmers that have lost their lives. I know a lot of people that are not willing to go back into the farm to create all these small packages of food that are feeding local markets for food to come. For goodness sake, I don't see the government silos anywhere.
Well, these are, I mean, security agencies like the DSS and the rest can clamp down on any group that plans to protest in the cities with alacrity, with precision.
Yeah.
So, are there chances that maybe DSS and agencies here, they have intel about these kind of things, and then they submit it to either the state government or the federal government so they can do something about it?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's very heart-rending when you hear that farmers can go to the market, I mean, to the farms to do their job. Now, if you remember, during the Buhari administration, one of the major things, in my view, that was achieved but didn't get enough play was the National Livestock Transformation Plan. Now, I can talk about that because, you know, the principal with whom I worked, the vice president, you know, did tremendous work with the governors through the National Economic Council. Look, the important thing about that National Livestock Transformation Plan was that there was consensus across this country. The governors agreed. They had subcommittees. They visited the communities in different parts of this country. Okay? One of the committees was headed by Governor Umai, and they came up with a consensus report, which is what we call the National Livestock Transformation Plan, essentially saying that, look, it's going to be ranching. You know, ranching is the way to do it. And the proposal was that the federal government should help the state in setting this up. As a matter of fact, I know that some of the monies were released, you know, towards the end. So we already have a solution to this problem, a negotiated solution. It's just sad that you haven't had an effective implementation. So that report is still there.
That's because, Mr. Laulu, there are dynamics at the state levels that need to be addressed first. It's a beautiful plan. However, like the former governor of Benue State said at the time, other governors said the same thing too. Also in that National Economic Council, there are underlying situations that need to be addressed. And those situations are historical. They have not been addressed.
No.
So the implementation of that plan is hinged on those negotiations.
No, so you missed the point. What I'm saying is that those dynamics you need to really report. And that's the whole point about when I said that there was a consensus. It took a while. Now, that is different from Ruga. A lot of people missed it with Ruga. As a matter of fact, you know, we had to come out when the Ruga team was saying that, no, this is not what... NEC wasn't talking about Ruga. We did a statement to say that this is not Ruga, a very strong statement. So those dynamics have been taken care of already. For instance, part of the proposal is that each state will determine on their own what kind of procedure or which of the plans they will that addresses their situation. So the report was developed state by state, region by region, that meets the peculiarities of it. Look, the fact that you have all the governors, I sat in NEC, I sat in every NEC, because the vice president is the chairman. Okay, so I had this argument, and I know that these matters were sorted out. The problem was a lot of internal contradictions with Ruga here and there. But I
perhaps one other way of putting that, Mr. Akande,
let's fund NLTP. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Akande, perhaps one of the issues that a number of people either talk about or refuse to talk about concerning that particular issue you just raised now is the politicization of the entire conversation. So leading me to this question, and this question is for you and our other guests with you there. We're talking about, living conditions generally. And the question that comes to my mind right now, going by what you have said, both of you have said so far, is issue of patriotism. How patriotic or not are the issues that are coming up as a result of some of the, misgivings that so many people are ascribing to a number of things that's going on? This living standard imbroglio, crisis that we find ourselves, this food crisis of a problem, the price gouging that some people have also alleged. How much of patriotism exists or is lacking in the entire conversation? Let me begin with you, Mr. Akande.
Well, I mean, that's a very significant question that you have raised, because it's so broad that, you got to say, in my view, I think that we can have a lot more patriotism in our country. Clearly, beyond just mouthing, the stuff. Because if we had to be a little bit more patriotic, especially the political elites, and that is what is really important. The political elites have to be a little bit more patriotic, a little less selfish in looking at these problems. Look, many of these problems are not rocket science at all. So don't let's appear to suggest that, the problems here are so Herculean. No. A lot of the times is the question of putting personal, private, individual interest ahead of the public good. So in a broad sense, if I may, look, we can do with a lot more patriotism. And the challenges that we face, including this food crisis, including the living minimum wage stuff, they are not difficult to sort out. So for instance, the minimum wage, or living wage, is common sense. It's common sense. If somebody is going to get a salary for a job done, you must ensure that salary delivers a livelihood. When we give salaries that is not going to deliver a decent livelihood, what we have done is that we have given license to these people to sort out themselves. And that explains a lot of the people, a lot of the insecurities that we are dealing with, because many people, I'm not saying that it is right, but people have been pushed to the wall. This is their whole reaction. And it's so heart-rendering. Because
okay, Mr. Akande, that's noted.
The average, the common man, should not be the subject. Please hold on now. Let me get this point in 10 seconds.
Okay, go ahead.
The average worker should not be the one to suffer for the errors or the inabilities or the failure of political elite.
Okay, let me ask Mr. Bolarinwa the same question, particularly in the light of the weakening of the Naira and food shortage and the conversation going on from so many quarters now about the need for governors and other tiers of government to come in. How much of patriotism is lacking or needed in that particular conversation, Mr. Bolarinwa?
To be very honest with you, I think the constituency of patriotism has been completely destroyed. Who am I going to talk to about patriotism now with the current situation of things? Even I myself, my conscience is beginning to challenge me sometimes when I query myself to be patriotic in Nigeria. The problem is touching everybody. So that has been totally broken down. And I think we will be depending on the organization like National Orientation Agency and few others to see how that can be reignited. Everybody in Nigeria today, or most of us in Nigeria today, are taking the laws into our hands, are taking the control of things into our hands because we have lost total faith in the country. But to be patriotic is one of the best ways to uphold the country. If we go through our national pledge, before I left secondary school, we have been cracking the joke that to serve Nigeria is not by force, where we are supposed to say to serve Nigeria with all my strength.
So it was you guys that started that?
Yeah, I admit. We were there. So I think we need to go back there because those generations coming up now, I don't really know what to say to them if I'm to talk about the type of conversation that is happening in my own family about Nigeria. My family are asking me today, what am I still doing in Nigeria? Basically, because everybody has left me and I've gone back to the diaspora. So there is no patriotism anywhere. Speak to drivers, speak in the market, speak everywhere. Everybody has gone back to their camp. The church constituency have now taken over. And I think we really need to go back to that personalism of being patriotic about how to move the project Nigeria forward. It is down to zero at the moment, and we really need to bring it up.
Well, we know that those countries were once upon a time down to zero, and they brought themselves back to where they are, where other people want to rush down there now. So even if we are back to zero, we can decide that we can come forward because we know how resilient we can be as a people in this country. So it's not all doom and gloom. We know we have a nation. That's why people are still in this country, because they still think something can be done. And so we think we can all pull together and ensure that this is done, including pulling anyone who wants to stop us out of the way and ensuring that we get things done. So I have to thank both of you for coming on this morning. Olatubosun Abolarinwa and Lalu Akonde, thank you both for coming on today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, that is the show today. We do thank you all for watching. Yes, we have a nation to build. There will be challenges as we currently face now, but you and I need to decide to do the right thing. So whoever is by your side that's refusing, at some point, we need to ensure that we do what we have to do to move forward, no matter whose ox is going. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Osol.
Remain patriotic. I'm Kayla Magwa.
And I'm Amakinde. Do have a wonderful day.